Alright guys, today we're going to be adding on a Motobilt relocation bracket for the camera and the license plate. The bumper we got here, which you can see in another video, I got a really good deal on it, but it was missing the license plate holder that normally goes in that bottom left corner. So I've already taken it out of the box and painted it as I already showed you, and we're about to take these out and go ahead and start getting them put together. Alright, once you've removed your tire, you can tell there are two T25 Torx bits right here. We're going to take those out. Alright, once you've taken those out, you're going to push on the three of these to get them in. You're going to have to push a little hard here. Alright, there's actually two pieces. You've got the bolts and the little tiny plastic piece there. They might possibly go together like mine did. They might come separate. I just use a rubber mallet and just kind of go around and tap it out. Just like that, and it's good. If you finagle it just right here, you can get it down and dropped out through the bottom. And we're going to take this apart by these little tiny 3 screws. And those are going to go into this part right here, which we'll line up here in a minute. Now, one of the reasons I am doing this video is I couldn't find online any brief on how to do this. There's no instructions that came with it. I can't find it online. But the only way that this clearly goes together is we're going to have to actually cut this part right here to separate this part, so that the new piece can go on to relocate it. Once pulling those 3 bolts out, and those are a Torx T8 size, we're going to disconnect the camera by just pushing on this little button right here and separating it out. Alright, and this is the one thing I love about not getting instructions from a company that should send you them. The small screws that they sent to go through these small holes and into here, these little Allen wrench ones came in it. They are too big for the holes that are in the OEM camera. And the screws that came with the OEM camera are too small to go into here. So I'm going to have to actually drill these holes out in this camera. It would have been nice for them to have done a review on this stuff ahead of time. Thanks, you guys. Alright, so after drilling it out just a little bit, 3 screws have gone through, and it is a good mount. It's very good quality, but I wish they had kind of let us know what we were looking into. So hopefully they'll come out with something and probably correct me with a few things I'm doing, since I'm kind of having to figure this out. Alright, this next part here, these are the 2 pieces. We're going to pry this apart so we can go ahead and trim this part off. And then we're going to come back and we're going to trim this part off, because obviously it's not going to go in. And this is what it's going to look like after you cut that part off. Alright guys, when you go to cut this little hacksaw, I did start off using one of these little vibrating ones. I forget what they're called. It worked pretty well to get me the groove in, but couldn't get all the angles. This is actually cutting through pretty quick. It is some aluminum inside the plastic. Alright guys, once you cut that tip off there, we're going to go ahead and reinsert this part here back in, so we have our nuts coming back out, and then start putting this back together. Alright, that's with the 2 small bolts back in. Got our wire brought through, so let's grab our piece. Alright, one thing I did forget to mention, on your camera wire, make sure to disconnect this little part here, or the camera will not be long enough to make it all the way through. Alright, we're going to grab this part here, and it is going to go on just like that. And then the wire here is going to come in that little tiny center hole. And then now we're going to put the tire on up over this. Alright, now that your tire's on, go ahead and put your lug nuts on. And then we're going to come up underneath here and grab that little camera connector right through. Alright, now this one is my fault because this did come put together. But how I've got this camera mounted, it's actually going to be the exact opposite side that it goes onto. But we're going to go ahead and put our nuts and bolts in here and tighten those down. And then your camera one is held on by that 3rd one right there. So as you can tell, that has been corrected there for that angle, so it's going to basically go on the underside of that to the back side. And if you're wondering why I got paint on my fingers, there were some parts I was doing earlier. I got some overspray and just hadn't had a chance to clean it yet. So as you can tell, those are those 2 bolts in from the back side. Now we're going to connect the camera one up on the underside. So that is going to be your next stage there with that bolt in on the back side there. So bolt in to the master part right there. Alright, got those 2 bolts in. As you can see, the camera is securely protected. One thing I do want to point out is I know the red is a little bit different slightly, but depending on where you're looking at it in the color light, it is a very close match, and since it will be a little further away, it will be a little different, and I'll get you the color here in just a minute. Alright, now this part is kind of self-explanatory. We are going to take our wire we disconnected earlier, plug it in the back side, and then these two are going to go together. That is the one thing they actually showed on a video, so we all know how to do that part. Alright, and as you can tell where I'm at now, as I've discovered, trying to put it all together, that this wire is just a little bit too tight for this tire setup, for the spacing and everything. Yours might fit, but what we've got to do is come back up in this underside and kind of cut the wire out of the wire loom so we get just a little bit more spacing in that wire to come out just a little bit further. Alright, so once pulling off the bolts here on the other side, and then down lower, we are going to come to this backside wire right here, and we're just going to cut open the black tape right here to expose the two wires that are in there, and then separate them out to get a little more length. So once separating out that wire, as you can tell, you're going to have a little more length off of that to run it. Alright, so after getting that extra wire in, we now have enough space to get it wrapped. As you can tell, there's plenty of movement in the wire. Got these two bolts on. I'm about to put the license plate on for an overall view of it. So now on to the next issue. Got one bolt in, and as you can see, the rest of these holes just don't quite line up, and you've got to loosen this up and actually put the plate behind it for it to kind of pinch in. Not exactly like they said it would fit. They probably need to do some fitment issues. Alright, and we are at the end of the night. As you can tell, I've got the running lights put in there. I did a little differently just for what I had on hand. And this is the paint that we use, the Toolbox Red from Rust-Oleum. The lights are a little kind of hard to see at night as far as on camera, but they are there. As far as fitment, they've got a lot of issues with fitment. I had to drill holes in the license plate to spread them out. I kind of expected it to fit a little bit better, but I don't know if this is her first go around with this particular layout or something's wrong with the license plates or what. But there were a lot of fitment issues in this. I really wish they'd had a better review of how to put this all together and installing it prior to me purchasing it. Not a problem, probably still would have done it, but there was a lot more than what was expected.